Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. This is a Legal Tech Media Group webinar covering the upcoming ILTACON conference. My name is Chelsea Lambert. I'm going to be your moderator this afternoon, but I'm very pleased to share that our team, Cathy Kenton and Angela Roark, will be leading today's session with a very special guest, Ken Hanson. So to give you some background on the topics that we will be discussing today is what makes ILTA different than other conferences, especially helpful for those of you who may be attending ILTACON for the first time, planning around everything from your pre and post-show communications to social media and public relations strategies. We'll cover some booth best practices and sales tips for when you're on-site exhibiting. And then Ken will be helping out with ILTA Insider Insights. So what is it like from the planning side, and what is expected of exhibitors or business partners from ILTA's point of view, and also some special advice that he may have for everyone attending. So thank you all so much for joining us. We will be taking Q&A, so feel free during the course of today's presentation to enter those questions into the questions pane, and I'll be sharing them with our speakers. To give you a little bit of background on who Legal Tech Media Group is, legal is our specialty. We are a full-service marketing agency that provides strategic and tactical services for legal business partners who sell products or services to law firms, in-house counsel, or legal professionals. And you'll notice that during the course of today's presentation, we have shifted away from the term vendor. We prefer to use the term legal business partner, or the hashtag legal biz partner, because that is truly what you are to your clients. Really trying to change and adjust the conversation away from a transactional relationship to partners that help businesses grow, that help law firms reach their goals, that help solve challenges within their business. And so if you can help us by spreading the word and using the hashtags here throughout the course of the presentation, or as you do business in this space, we would greatly appreciate it. First, I'd like to introduce Cathy Kenton. Cathy Kenton is my co-founder in Legal Tech Media Group and also events.legal. She has firsthand experience leading change inside legal technology companies with more than 25 years of legal sales and marketing experience. Cathy works exclusively with legal business partners, helping them deliver their products and services to avoid pitfalls, generate internal buy-in, and turn strategies into action. Cathy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And also Angela Roark. Angela is director of events.legal and has over a decade of experience in marketing and event planning. With her instinctive insight, resourcefulness, and expertise in the digital media platform, she helps clients to focus on key factors and implement necessary changes to grow their business. Angela, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And then Ken, our special guest for today, has been working with ILTA for 14 years. He started in publications and was essential in each early publication of peer-to-peer and more. In 2009, Ken moved out of the shadows and into the forefront to aid in ILTA's business partner development. Prior to joining the ILTA team, Ken spent 20 years on the technology side in law firms and helped solidify his love for gadgets. Ken, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us.
No, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so, Cathy, I'm going to hand over the first portion of today's presentation to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ken, Angela, both of you have firsthand experience here, so please feel free to jump in. I initially attended ILTA before it was ILTACON, before it was ILTA, when it was still peer-to-peer. And I first attended ILTA in the late 90s when the conference was still being held in Palm Springs. And I can tell you that it has grown a lot, it has changed a lot, all for the better. But it's an exciting organization, it's an important organization, and one of the things that I think makes it different from a lot of the conferences and trade shows that so many of us attend and participate in is that this really is a peer-driven organization from the ground up. It's there obviously there is professional staff, but the entire organization is directed by members of the legal technology community, and it's a wonderful opportunity to interact with everyone in that workspace. I know Angela, you wanted to comment on volunteers, so I will hand it over to you for the volunteers.
Yeah, just a reminder, I worked with ILTA for 5 years and attended the conferences, and I learned so much there. It was a pleasure to work there. It really got me into the legal technology arena. And just wanted to remind everybody that a lot of the people that you will encounter at ILTACON are volunteers. They may be a possible client for you, or they may be a client's wife or a client's husband. And there's a lot of staff members there, and I believe, Ken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys probably do hire some people in the area now to do some of the really grunt work, but those volunteers are doing everything from stuffing backpacks to, checking you in at registration.
Yeah, we typically have some contract people to help with the registration stuff, but it really is an army, and I mean an army. There's like hundreds of people just on the ILTACON committee, and then we have volunteers that are spouses and all that also help out with us as well. So there really is an army of volunteers.
Wonderful, thank you. So in terms of attendee demographics, one of the things that makes ILTACON so unique is that this is truly an event for folks that are really interested in technology. Their jobs revolve around technology, as opposed to, there are certainly lawyers in attendance and other legal professionals in attendance, but by and large, you're dealing with CIOs, CTOs, and all of the job descriptions that fall into those departments. So I think the important thing here is to keep in mind that these are folks, most of whom, or many of whom, have decision-making and budgetary power. However, they're also in the mode of providing the best possible work environment for their clients, which are the members of their firms. So I think that's important to keep in mind. I know that in the early days of ILTA, we thought of it as primarily a large firm conference where only the attendees, or all of the attendees, were primarily from large firms. I think that has certainly changed over the last several years, and the attendees, while we continue to see a large percentage from large firms, are increasingly coming from mid-size and smaller firms, as well as from corporate legal departments. Ken, did you want to add anything to the demographic conversation?
No, that was really, we've been doing a couple of pushes toward the smaller and mid-sized firms, as well as the corporate folks. So yeah, that's it's growing little by little and all, but we are doing a push for both of those groups.
Great, good. So really this session is about the last bullet point here, maximizing your investment. Everybody knows that ILTACON is one of the more expensive events that you can invest in during the year. And it's really critical that you not just show up and then walk away at the end of the conference and say, okay, well, check another one off the calendar. This is really a critical event. These folks are coming to, the attendees are coming to the conference primarily for the education, but they're also coming to learn what's new, what changes are happening and what you as their partners, whether you are providing them with product currently or you want to provide them with product or services, this is really your opportunity to connect with the people that get in there and get their hands dirty. So it's really important to think about this, not just, and even if you've gone, attended and participated in ILTACON in prior years, and for many years, it's really important to stop and think about who's going to be there, what's your message, and how do you maximize the investment that you're making, not only in the dollars that you spend with ILTA, but all of the extras. What's it cost to have your staff out of the office and the travel costs? What does it cost to have electricity and internet and services? All of that needs to be looked at and budgeted for. So you really want to put your best foot forward here. And with that, we'll move on. I think we skipped one. Excuse me. Oh, okay. No, we didn't. I'm sorry. So we're going to start at the beginning with goals. And what are your goals? What do you have a plan? Are you, as I mentioned, going through the motions and showing up, picking up a bunch of business cards, scanning a bunch of badges, handing out a bunch of swag, going home and saying, well, we did it again, folks. So really, it's important to have a plan, build your metrics. How many leads do you need to generate from the event? How many leads do you expect from prior experience, if you have it, do you think will convert? And very importantly, what defines a meaningful conversation? Meaningful conversations don't happen when someone comes by, you scan their badge, and you hand them a stuffed toy or a pen. It's really about getting involved in the service side, the product and service side of your business, and really identifying at the outset with the list that you all should have received yesterday of the pre-reg, what are the job titles? Who are the people that you really want to reach, really want to have a meaningful conversation? And what is that meaningful conversation? Not only what does it look like, but how do you plan to follow up on that in the next steps? So we'll move on from there to sales strategy. And now we're really talking about, okay, you've got a plan, you've picked out your swag, you've done all that, and we'll get back to swag in a little while because that's the fun part. But what is it you're trying to accomplish? Are you planning to do demos in the booth? Are you trying to set up appointments in advance? Is it your goal to make sales coming at the show or coming out of the show? You don't need to have all of those goals. But you need to take a serious look at what is the purpose of your attendance. Now, for a lot of companies who are sponsors and exhibitors, it may not be as much about making new sales or doing demos. It may be more about an opportunity to reach out to existing clients, and that's every bit as important as new product sales, as new customer sales. So it's really important to determine up front, what is the purpose of your being here? And then you can spring into action, making sure that you're capturing and qualifying leads, if you're doing demos in the booth, what does that look like? And how are you going to accommodate that? Who's doing the demos that really knows the product at a high level and can move through a demo relatively quickly and at the same time answer specific questions as they come? And that leads obviously to staffing. Who are you going to staff the booth with? I highly recommend that you don't bring your tech support people because they're not the most outgoing in person. They're not going to be the ones that are in the booth, welcoming people in, inviting questions, and trying to connect. So really think about the folks that you want in the booth representing your company. And then obviously you need to provide them with appropriate training. So we'll talk a little bit about booth best practices a little bit later. But you need to, the team needs to understand what your priorities are for this event. You can get into incentives and goal setting. You may incentivize your team with the number of meaningful conversations or qualified leads. However you decide based on your metric and your plan, incentivize your booth attendees so that they want to take on those that are coming to the booth. So that really covers sales strategy. We'll talk a little bit now about pre-show communication. These are the things you can and should be doing right now. We're just a couple of days beyond a month away. You want to have a plan. This all goes back to your plan. What is your pre-show communication going to be? How are you going to create urgency so that folks want to come to your booth? Whether it's you're giving something away that everybody wants to have, you're doing something that you've got a new product that you're announcing that both your existing customers and potential customers have been clamoring for. Make sure that you're getting out in front of both your existing customers and your prospects that are going to be attending, and let them know that there's a reason for them to stop and visit with you. Don't forget, there's going to be a lot of booths there. There's going to be a lot of sponsors. This is an event where the attendees are good about spending time on the floor and walking the aisles. But if they don't know who you are and it's not clear what you have to offer, they're not going to, for the most part, they're not going to stop and ask you about your products or services. Direct mail, I will touch on. As any of the veterans know, ILTA requires approval on both pre and post show email, and I'll let Ken deal with that a little bit later. I'm sorry, direct mail. Email campaigns, the list that was provided to you intentionally does not have email addresses attached to it, and obviously that's for a reason, that ILTA is maintaining privacy with their attendees and with their members. However, there's nothing to prevent you, if you have a list of your own, from emailing leads and contacts and customers that you have to let them know that you're going to be at ILTA and that you would welcome the opportunity to meet with them and share information with them. And then, of course, to the extent that you can and to the extent that you have the prospects, you should be lining up pre-show meetings at the conference. That's one of the most effective ways to have one-on-one time. Remember that when people are walking the exhibit hall, they're not necessarily thinking that they've got 15 or 20 minutes to dedicate to a particular booth. They may not even have 5 minutes that they want to dedicate. So by setting up pre-show meetings, you are able to schedule time if you're fortunate enough to have a demo room. And again, Ken will talk about those. But if you're fortunate to have a demo room, make sure that demo room is busy, that it's not sitting empty for days, for hours and days, because it's just not a good investment. So I think we've covered pre-show communication. And now we'll move on to public relations and media strategy. So another must-have is a media plan. In today's world, and Angela will talk in just a few minutes about social media, but in today's world, it's really important to have news and to be able to let the marketplace and the attendees and the media know what you're up to. So there is going to be a press room at ILTA where exhibitors can leave media kits and information and press releases. It will be available to all registered media. My understanding, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be a physical press room, not an online press room. Is that correct?
Yes. So you can use that to leave press releases out. Also, if you want to make appointments with the press, you'll be able to use that room to meet folks there too.
Okay, and you'll be announcing that location as we get closer to the event, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about press releases. Everybody, we all want to get our press releases out, and we know that this is a busy time and there's going to be a lot of noise. So you really want to make sure that your press release is going to be, if you're looking for coverage, you want to make sure that your press release is really going to cover a topic or cover a product announcement or a business announcement that's really critical to your business and to your user base. That's what's going to be interesting to the press. If you're just announcing, a few updates to an application, that's great, and there's nothing wrong with doing that kind of a press release, but don't expect that it's going to be picked up or that you're going to be able to get press meetings as a result of that. Remember that the press are inundated with contacts. They're hearing from all of us now and for the next few weeks. Everybody wants to set up meetings. Everybody wants to check those boxes and make sure that they're getting in front of the right people. So understand there's going to be a lot of competition and there's very little time. You really, if you want a meeting or a group of meetings, you need to start early. You can't just expect that a reporter or a blogger is going to just walk up to your booth and say, hey, I got this press release. Tell me about your product. So that leads to media outreach, and media outreach is touching those people in advance, trying to schedule those meetings, getting those on-site meetings before the conference starts. And I know the press list will be out in a couple of weeks, and I would suggest that you review it carefully, review the contacts that you have and who you might be able to work with and to schedule with, and then get on it. Because again, if you wait until the last minute, you're not going to get that kind of coverage. This is particularly important, I think, for the Startup Hub. One of the things that's new this year, as many of you know, is that there's an area dedicated to new technology and to startups. And these are going to be folks that are relatively new to the marketplace. They're coming in with new products, and it's particularly important for them to want to get out in front of media and get as many meetings and as much coverage as you can. It's a great opportunity for you. Beyond press, you want to look at content and generating content. What kind of content can you use to fuel your media strategy? Is there an ebook? Is there a new white paper? Is there a survey, a market survey that you're close to completing that you can get done in a short, what's left of our short time remaining before ILTA, that can then be promoted through through the various channels at ILTA. And then finally, social media. We're going to talk at some length about social media shortly.
Kathy, if I can add one thing, we do have the option. There's a fee, and I don't have the number in my head, but we do offer a service, I guess it would be, that if you have a press release that's going to be coming around at ILTACON time, just send a message to sponsor@iltanet.org, and then we'll send you a link, and you put that in there, and then we have a press release section on our mobile app that we push out any press releases that people want to do that are conference.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so everybody take note. There's a paid, but and my recollection is it's not a super high fee. So if you're particularly if you're making an important announcement, absolutely consider the ILTA app.
Is it a paid?
We have one more quick question from the audience while we're on the topic of PR and the press room. How do you go about specifically setting a media appointment, or what would typically go into a media kit? So maybe some tips for our audience around just initiating that conversation for first timers.
Okay, so generally what you're going to want to do is reach out to the individual member of the press that you want to meet with. Inform them of what you're going to be announcing. If it's highly sensitive, you can always provide them with an embargoed copy of the press release or announcement. And by embargoed, that means that essentially they're under NDA and they are not to publicly comment on it until after the date of your announcement. That's certainly the press loves to be first and loves to have announcements before others. So if there's a couple of members of the press that you particularly want to meet with, if you let them know that you're providing this to them only and it's embargoed, that they're getting advance notice, you will have a better chance of getting that live meeting. And meetings can take place in a number of different places. They can certainly take place in your booth. That's usually the easiest location because the press will be on the floor a great deal of the time. Or you can do it in the media room. The only suggestion I would make is that you try to schedule if you're doing press meetings in your booth, that you do them at a time when there's sessions going on, not during the breaks, because those are typically going to be more crowded, it's going to be noisier, it's going to be busier, and you're not going to really be able to have a meaningful conversation. So thank you for that question. I hope we've answered it a little bit, and we'll move on.
A quick follow-up, like, is there a bullet point list or your tips as to what should go into a media kit?
Sure. So a media kit should have a company backgrounder. It should have your press release. It should have an overview of the company. And then it also depends on what you're announcing. If you're announcing a new product or a significant upgrade to an existing product, then it should also include a piece of collateral or content on that product or upgrade that covers the high points. And I would say, keep it to the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 top items that are really important about this product, and keep in mind the value proposition. Don't get down in the weeds with, well, this does this, what does this mean for the end user, for the customer? What's the value proposition of what you're doing? If you're announcing an acquisition or you're announcing a senior hire. Obviously, with a hire, you'd want to do some kind of a bio of the person who's being announced. If it's an acquisition, you need to know whether you can discuss the amounts and the names and of the or the investment information. This is a great time if you've got investments in your business. If you're bringing on investors and companies and closing rounds of funding, this is a wonderful time to include that. You don't need, obviously, to get into all of the details, and in some cases the amounts will be withheld, and that's fine, but try to be as transparent as you can. So I would say, really, from a bullet point standpoint, it's largely going to depend on what kind of an announcement it is, whether it's product or people or investment, but always have a company backgrounder and a short series of bios on key executives.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cathy. And Ken, just to confirm, that list will be released here within the next couple weeks of the press list?
Actually, I just saw a message that I may be going out this afternoon or tomorrow.
Oh, wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you. So as we'll move on with press releases. We've talked to a certain extent about this. Convey what's new. Whether it's to existing customers, whether you're trying to acquire new customers. There's no right or wrong here, but make sure that you're really talking about what's new. One of my pet peeves when it comes to press releases is that everybody thinks they need the first line to shout that they are a leader in their category. So typically you see XYZ company, comma, a leader in the XYZ space, comma, or the leader in the XYZ space, today announced their blah, blah, blah. Not everybody's a leader. Not everybody is the leader. And that kind of puffery just, it doesn't help. It can only hurt. What we see, in my years of dealing with the press, legal is a cynical market space to begin with, and the press are cynical as well. A lot of them are lawyers or former lawyers, and frankly, they don't believe it. And if you've got a brand new company that's launching a product that's competing in a category, to say that you're a leader when you've got a handful of clients is not very credible. So leave the puffery out and go directly to the benefits. Obviously, with press releases at ILTACON, you're going to want to make sure, if you're releasing the news at ILTACON, that you've got people who can address the news on site. And now I'm going to really turn this over to Angela, who's going to cover the social media aspect and how to integrate all of this into your social media plan.
Thank you, Cathy. So everyone can leverage social media. And the thing about social media is it's very difficult to measure. Although we're going to show you some automated systems that I found recently, and there's one particularly that is doing a great job of measuring it. But when you create a social media program, you should do it in advance, and especially if you're attending something like ILTA, because when you're in that booth and having to ask people that are in the booth to send out tweets and do this, and do a Facebook Live post or something like that, that's fine to do that occasionally. But if you want to get out an organized message, it's best to have a plan ahead of time, know what that message is. Just like Cathy was talking about in the sales strategies, social media is part of that sales strategy. And if you can have somebody on the ground that's not necessarily, that's back at your home office, and schedule these posts to go out during ILTA, hashtagging everything, getting the profiles ahead of time, knowing who you're going to tag in it. If it's a press release, hashtag press release. It's going to help you be more successful in the social media campaign. And then we have the hashtags that ILTA has, which is hashtag ILTACON19. And then I know, Ken, the members use hashtag We Are ILTA a lot. And so those are the hashtags that you'll want to follow, and not just hashtag them, but follow them and take a look and see what other people are posting, and comment and get involved in other posts, especially if ILTA or members are posting in it, and you can tweet back, then that creates a relationship in itself sometimes.
And Angela, this is Ken. I just wanted to point out too that the hashtag We Are ILTA is a hashtag that we used year round. So after ILTACON 19, be sure to use the We Are ILTA hashtag.
Thank you. Yes, for pointing that out. It is used year round. It's used by, I know, in all of the posts year round that you guys do that I follow. I see it with their volunteers. I see it with different events. Just everything that makes ILTA special, and they use the hashtag We Are ILTA quite a bit. So, you want to post tweets of news, booth activity, press coverage, and through LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn, don't underestimate it, because it is a powerful tool. People usually sit down on LinkedIn when they have some time to read articles and that kind of thing. If you have a white paper that's coming out that's perhaps gated, you're going to want to post those things on LinkedIn. We can go to the next screen. I wanted to show you guys the social media contact calendar. And again, this is part of the planning. If you're having an event, if you're putting out a press release, if you want to schedule things, have everything, including images, done ahead of time and ready to go out. Know when you're going to schedule it, who's responsible for it, what the goal is in the end. And make sure to include your booth number if you have a booth on there, so that everything that's going out, they're seeing your branding and your booth on the social media. Include links. Sometimes if you're posting very quickly, you may just want to post something quickly and not have a link. But if you plan it out, you can actually include the link so that it's someone's doing more than just reading it or clicking on something. They click on it and it's going to your website, or it's going to, again, a white paper or a blog post or a press release, and there's a link to it that's planned out ahead of time, and you're not trying to scramble to figure out what the links were. Another thing that you want to do is again, plan ahead to what your social media hashtags and tags are going to be. If you're tagging a CEO, if you have a partner that you're partnering with, and maybe they may have more followers than you, as you meet people on the floor, even, and this could be the live posting, but as you meet people on the floor that you guys can engage together in, you can tag them and vice versa, and that's just going to be very helpful. And then I have one more smart sheet for live posting on the next screen. So again, you want to continue to put these items out, and these are the weeks leading up to it. I suggest you start 3 weeks in advance to get activity and to get movement. You can post the same post over, every 3 or 4 days. And then when you're live, make sure that there are live posts from the booth. And I know oftentimes, even if I'm not at a conference and I'm doing social media for someone, you know, they can send pictures to me of where they are and what they're doing. I can formulate it in a calm environment and get it out on social media to show what's going on there. And it's a live shot. Facebook Live is a great option as well. I will say though that, and Ken, are there a lot of members that, I mean, I know that they're on Facebook personally, but would you say that at ILTA it's mainly like Twitter's the big one that's at ILTA, correct?
Yeah.
And there's actually staff on hand from ILTA that are covering social media the entire time. So make sure that you get those tags out, those hashtags out, because they'll occasionally just, you know, throw something or retweet it and like it. And so you want to make sure that you are not only hashtagging the ILTACON 19, but also tagging ILTANet as well.
And one thing I would say, if you're going to be doing like Facebook Live or something like that, that you should probably have a waiver for any members that you're going to be interviewing, just to be on the safe side.
Very good advice. Thank you, Ken. Okay, next. One thing that's important in any social media plan is having an automated process. So again, scheduling these ahead of time. And these are a couple of the social media automated applications that are out there. The IFTTT stands for if this, then that. And that's great for if customers are getting back to you, you can respond to them right away, and you can set up schedules for if somebody replies to you, then this message goes out to them, or it alerts someone. But these are all options for social media automated applications. If you have HubSpot, they have a social media application with their marketing plan. And then on the next slide, I'm going to show you the latest one that I happen to love. And these are things that you should look for when you're looking for a plan. Social Report is what I've been using recently. And I just grabbed a screenshot really quickly, but it lets you schedule things ahead of time. And I'm talking on every single social media platform, including YouTube, Instagram. I think they have about 20 different platforms. But it's geared towards businesses, and it lets you actually target certain individuals on certain media outlets. It lets you do geocoding, so you can do geocoding into your post, and then you can bulk schedule messages. So you could put, you know, 20 messages at a time to go out over the next 2 weeks or more, and schedule those messages. And then the reporting on it is absolutely fantastic. It tells you how many clicks, it tells you your engagement with your followers, it tells you if somebody unfollows you, who it is, it tells you male, female, what their you know, where they live. And so it's just a really great automated application system. But if you are doing social media and you're doing it and you want to be successful in it, you're going to need some tool, whether it's Hootsuite, HubSpot, Social Report, that actually allows you to set these up in advance in addition to the live post that you're doing from ILTA to be successful, and then follow those reports. You can put these, another thing that you can do, I know both in HubSpot and in Social Report, is you can set up different campaigns. Like, what's your target in this? Are you targeting lead generation? Are you pushing a product? What are you doing there? And it allows you to set these different things up and what those posts were. So, and that's, I believe that covers the social media section. And sorry. Oh, one more back. Sorry. These are the social media sites that ILTA has. And I don't think that there's more than 4. I think that these are the main ones that you guys have. Is that correct, Ken? The Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Correct.
Okay, so, and these are all the sites at your fingertips. Put them into your social media. Make sure that you're following them, and then that way you'll see their feeds as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Angela. I'm going to dive in here with booth best practices. So if you have not seen, we have a tremendous amount of material and handouts around how to make the most out of your conference experience. And ROI, or selling on the floor, is one of the best ways to make sure that you're taking home the number of leads that you need, having the most meaningful conversations possible. But that takes preparation ahead of time, and rehearsing what your value proposition is, or preparing to talk to attendees on the show floor the morning of or after setup when everybody's already tired from travel and prepping the booth is not the greatest time to have those conversations. So have an elevator pitch and practice it. Practice it ahead of time. Have a team meeting with members of both sales, marketing, and anyone who might be working the floor. If they've never done a trade show or conference, it's really important to make them feel comfortable. As Cathy mentioned, you pick members of the team that are fairly outgoing, and then rehearse that elevator pitch with them over and over again. Role play. Also address conversations that may not be a fit for your business, that you may not want as customers. How do you handle if press comes up to the booth? How do you handle if it could be somebody associated with a strategic partnership? At Legal Tech Media Group, we actually have an entire 10-hour training course available online that takes you through each of those areas of sales. But to give you the distilled version today, you want to have members of your team that are assigned or responsible for handling specific conversations. So in the event that someone wants a demo, who is going to be demoing the application? Have they done a demo before? Is this the first time that they're going to be demoing in person compared to over the phone? What is their level of confidence? Make sure that we vet and we have a team that's prepared and not doing things for the very first time. And then really having everyone on the same page as to what the value proposition is for your firm. I'll give you kind of an anecdotal example. If you work with specific practice areas or specific types of firms, having case studies that are easily accessible either online or physically printed in the where you can transition the conversation from, yes, that is something with, in fact, here's a customer story. We have a great customer story that I would love to see you for an email. If you have some of the in your bag, contact information, and send that to you. You have a very finite amount of time in some of this area.
Chelsea, you're breaking up.
Oh,
There, that's better.
okay. They are either trying to get to their next session, or they're trying to work the exhibit hall and walk it while they have time in between courses. So it's important for you to make the most out of that conversation and get their contact information as quickly as you can. And then eliminate the marketing speak, as Cathy mentioned before, the puffery. People know that you are there to sell, that you are there to promote your product. So really spend your time qualifying the lead, asking them questions, and have 3 or 4 qualification questions ahead of time, not at the time that you are exhibiting and on the floor, but that you've prepared and rehearsed with the team in advance. And then lastly, and we'll have a handout to follow up with you on this, in the pre and post show communication, you really think like an attendee, explain what that value proposition is. We have a couple handouts that we'll be sending you as a follow-up today, such as how to write a pre-show or post-show email series, and then those techniques for success on the floor. Those are your 2 handouts for today that we'll be sending along with the recording. And then team conversation, we're going to bring the whole panel in on this one. Swag and booth differentiators. So one of the most common questions that we always get is how to differentiate yourself on the floor. You know, what can we do that's more than pens? Do we run a contest in our booth? So feel free to enter questions in that cover any area of today's presentation. But specifically on swag and booth differentiators, Angela, Cathy, I know you are a master at this. So maybe if we could just share a couple of ideas as far as swag is concerned for anyone who might be exhibiting for the first time, especially our Startup Hub participants.
And so I'll start with this. Swag is important, but it's not all that. So be sure that while you budget for it and you plan for it, that it makes sense. Some companies are going to be giving out, are going to be spending $20 or $40 or $50 on per item on products that they're giving to existing clients and important prospects. If you can afford that, it's great, but you are not here to keep up with the Joneses. Everybody's got enough pens, everybody's got enough Post-it notes. Sometimes they'll take them, sometimes they won't. But in reality, what you want is something that is either going to stay in front of a prospect, like on their desk or in their backpack, or is going to remind them of your company. A lot of people will give away some kind of a stuffed animal or some kind of a squeezy ball, and people come up and say, "Oh, that's great. I have 3 grandchildren. Can I please have 3 of them?" That's your money going out the door. And while you have to be pleasant about it, you have to be nice. Try to keep that in mind. I personally don't think that that stuffed animals are the way to go. Although, having said that, I will tell you that I have a collection of 7 NQ kangaroos. I have one for each of the different years that I believe they may have done it more than 7 years, but every year they come out with a slightly different version. And this is not a set that I give to my grandchildren. This is a set that's in my office and reminds me of NQ every year. Food products are great, particularly if you can find something that identifies with the locale. So, for example, one year in Chicago, I did popcorn, and I used the specific popcorn, the famous popcorn brand that is from Chicago, and it pulled lots of folks into the booth. We had people coming to us going, "So and so told me that this is where I can get the good popcorn." So think about the good thing about that with food was it wasn't anything particularly expensive. There was no leave behind brand value, but it did create a buzz and it did create traffic to the booth. So think about that. Most of us are not going to be able to compete with the high-end companies and the platinum sponsors that have been exhibiting for years and have lots of clients, but that's okay. Just think about what you're trying to accomplish and try to make sure that, if possible, that the swag that you're handing out has some kind of a tie to the product that you want the prospect to remember.
And hi, this is Ken. I've got a couple of things I'd like to add as a follow-up to the food and having snack type things in there. The Disney properties are very, very strict about any food or beverage. So like if you wanted to do bottled water or something like that, you have to work with Disney to do that. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Of course.
That property, the Gaylords typically are better about it, but Disney is any food or beverage that it all has to go through their catering department. One other thing.
Thank you for that, Ken, because it's better to find that out now than later.
Yeah. The other thing I had too, and that we're really pushing it this year, is more greener everything. The canvas bags that we usually do every year, we're switching over to a biodegradable. Almost like one of the shopping bags or something like that. We're not going to have tons of bottled water all over the place and plastic cups all over the place and all that. So just kind of keep that green thing in mind too when you're looking at the swag.
That's great advice. Thank you. I know we're running short on time, so Chelsea, you want to take this back?
Absolutely. So post-show communication, we're going to be sending you a handout alongside the recording on how to architect a pre and post-show communication. So this is really where those qualification questions come in, and having those meaningful conversations on the floor all play together. Is that your post-show communication to offer to the contacts and the leads that you met at the show.
Kelsey, you're cutting out again. I'm sorry.
Oh, hold on one second. If that's any better. Okay, so pre and post show communication after the fact should include something like a webinar or a personal follow-up from the representative who may have spoken to them on the floor. Giving hot leads that special treatment, possibly sending handwritten notes, replacing individual phone calls. I am always a fan of phone follow-up. I think a lot of people are afraid of the phone, and it can make a big difference, especially if you had that one-on-one conversation with them over the in person, or as a handoff to another team member back in the office, referencing that conversation that you had with them on the phone. Do not wait to set this campaign up. You're going to be getting back to the office. You're going to be drowning in emails and trying to play catch up from being away for some cases over a week. And you're going to want to be able to just hit send or even have that scheduled to go out after uploading your list of leads. So don't wait. Prep this before you actually get to the show. And with that, we're going to hand it over back to Ken to wrap up today.
Yeah, I'm with that. Just a few little things here. The things that are a little bit different this year is that we're at the Swan and the Dolphin, which are two separate entities with a covered walkway between the two. And we'll also have golf carts going back and forth. It's not that long a walk, but just, it is August in Florida. It's like 5 or 6 years ago, I can't remember, we kind of had the same setup with the JW Marriott and the Ritz. And so we are having sessions and demo rooms in both hotels, just so that everybody will be crossing paths at some point down there. I'll be very honest, this year's exhibit hall is a little strange. It's basically in 3 parts, but it's all wide open. And in the third section, that's where we put our educational hub and some other stuff there just to drive people into that area. We also will have an exhibitor lounge in the exhibit hall. It'll be a curtained off area that typically has beverages and some snacks that, it's not a private place, but you can have a meeting if it's not, confidential kind of stuff. That will be in there. On the badges, we do not allow badge sharing, and there is a fee for replacement badges. We'll have folks that don't want to run back to their hotel room to get their badge. There is a fee for that. One thing that I want to point out and it follows on why our conference is different than others, that everyone has to have a badge to get into the exhibit hall, to get into the sessions or whatever. And I honestly believe that, having that, dare I say, a closed door policy tends to lead to better quality leads, because you're not having folks just driving through to get, do the swag drag thing and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, just beware of that. Apparel for this, I know you're going to be meeting new people and you want to be professional looking. I would not wear a suit. Most of our members and staff will be in jeans, or I won't be in shorts. Nobody wants to see that. But so dress more down. Khakis and a polo is absolutely perfect for our event. Cathy already talked about the pre and post com list, that we do not provide email addresses. We need to approve all of the mailers that are going out, and I will be very honest, the main thing we look for on those is it's about the product, not the party. If there's a giant kegger or a martini glass, we're probably going to ask you to change that, because this is going to law firms and attorneys walking by inboxes probably wouldn't want their people to be going to a beer bust. Let's see, press release list is going out the next day or so. As Cathy mentioned, there are a few attorneys. Typically, they're from the smaller firms where one of the attorneys is the IT department. We drive members to the hall by using our breaks. And our breaks are typically, depending on the day, an hour or an hour and a half. So especially with the Startup Hub people, just look at the breaks are going on and make sure that your booth is manned during that time, because it will be busy during that. Let's see, one thing that is really important is go to the educational sessions. There may be one or two that will be not business partner friendly, I guess, you know, and those are typically, we have a couple of companies that do state of the company addresses and all that. What a great place for you to sit and listen to the questions that your potential clients are asking. You know? And so, yes, definitely go to the sessions. And the last thing I have is we still have sponsorships available for sale. The plug. Anyway. And if you just, you know, send a message to sponsor at iltanet.org, we can get you taken care of and show you what that is. So that's me. That's what I'm done.
Thank you, Ken.
Gosh, well, thank you, Ken. Thank you so much for being here and participating with us. I think it's really valuable to get it literally from the horse's mouth, if you will. So we really appreciate the fact that you've joined us and spent this time with us and with the folks that are attending.
Of course.
Well, and thank all of you, Cathy, Angela, and Ken, for sharing all of your advice with us. We do have a couple minutes for questions if anyone would like to enter those in, or we did not address them during the course of the presentation. We've also included here Cathy, Angela, and the Ken's contact information. Please feel free to reach out. There will be a follow-up email sent out with the handouts that we mentioned, links to the recording, so feel free to forward those to any colleagues that are attending ILTA. We will be there and see you and look forward to meeting you in person if you attended this event. Definitely keep an eye out for a legal business partner specific event that we will be, that Legal Tech Media Group will be co-hosting on site. Thank you all.
Chelsea, thank you for your help with this. And if there's no questions, I think we're oh, there's a question.
There's a question from our furry friends, but we did cover all the questions entered in, so feel free to shoot those over directly to us via email if one comes to mind. And thank you everyone for taking time out of your day to join us.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks, Chelsea.